Full story. I took my wife to a party. She left with a richer man who tossed $1 at me and said, "I'll treat her well tonight." The next day, my unfaithful wife discovered her key didn't work, and her lover called her yelling, "Why didn't you tell me who your husband is?" Imagine this. Your wife invites you to her company party after years of keeping you hidden. You show up, trying your best, only to have her affair partner throw a dollar bill at you and say, "Don't worry, champ. I'll take good care of her tonight." That's where my story begins, but trust me, that's far from where it ends. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about a man pushed to his absolute limit, who found his voice, his power, and his ultimate satisfaction in the ashes of a broken marriage. My name is Darren Holt, and I'm 46 years old. On paper, my life probably looks boring. But when you're living it, it's pretty damn satisfying. See, I own Holt Custom Smokers, right here in Tennessee. We don't make those sad little propane grills you buy at Home Depot. No, sir. We turn cold, lifeless steel into these magnificent barbecue pits that make grown men weep with joy. These aren't just grills. They're monuments to the sacred art of low and slow cooking, precision-engineered tanks that could probably survive a small apocalypse. My hands always have grease under the fingernails. It's my badge of honor, proof I actually do something, not just sit in meetings about meetings. I paid off my mortgage 3 years early, which in this economy, makes me some kind of unicorn. I've got 4 kids who think I'm either a genius or a complete embarrassment, depending on whether I'm fixing their car or trying to use TikTok. And up until about a week ago, I honestly thought I had the kind of perfect marriage that looked good enough for the holiday card photos, the kind where nobody at church asked uncomfortable questions. Then there was Miranda. My wife. Or, I guess I should start saying, my soon-to-be ex-wife, just to get used to the bitter taste of those words. Miranda is beautiful. That elegant, put-together way that makes other women admire and secretly hate her. She's got ambition pouring out of her pores, the kind of drive that could power a small city. She worked in corporate marketing for some tech company, doing something with brand synergy and vertical integration that I never quite grasped, even after 700 explanations. She could talk her way out of an armed robbery, probably convince the robber to invest in a timeshare, and have him thank her for the opportunity. She made words do backflips and cartwheels until people just agreed out of sheer exhaustion. I thought we made sense. Like peanut butter and jelly, or bourbon and bad decisions. I was the smoke and fire, the tangible stuff you could touch and smell and taste. She handled the clients and cocktails, the social climbing that made my teeth itch. I built things with my hands in a workshop that smelled of metal and motor oil. She built strategic partnerships in conference rooms that smelled like expensive carpet and broken dreams. I figured we balanced each other out. The blue-collar guy keeping things grounded, the white-collar woman keeping us classy. I was the substance. She was the style. Together, we were supposed to be unstoppable. My workshop. That's my sanctuary. My happy place. The only spot on earth where everything just makes sense. It's a 1,500 square foot metal building behind our house. Sorry, my house now, we'll get to that. It's filled with welding equipment, steel sheets, and half-finished smokers. The concrete floor is stained with decades of oil and sparks. There's a radio in the corner that only plays classic rock, because I'm not subjecting my power tools to mumble rap. My workbench is older than my oldest kid, covered in tools I've collected over 25 years of actually giving a damn about craftsmanship. There's something deeply therapeutic about transforming raw metal into something beautiful, something functional. Something that'll outlive me. Maybe even become a family heirloom if my kids don't pawn it for beer money. The kids, though. They're the only part of that marriage that turned out exactly right. Noah, 18, is heading to trade school. Smart kid. The twins, Marcus and Maya, just turned 15. That delightful phase where everything I say is stupid until they need money. And then there's Hazel, my baby at 12, who still thinks I hung the moon and stars. I'm dreading the day she figures out I'm just a guy who's really good at welding and dad jokes. 4 years, I'd go to Miranda's company events, suffer through small talk with people whose idea of hard work was a difficult Excel formula. I'd smile politely while they asked me what I really did, as if building custom smokers was a hobby. But somewhere around year 5, I became her plus none. She stopped inviting me. Said I didn't fit the culture, my jokes were too blue-collar, that I made her colleagues uncomfortable because I asked them to explain what they actually produced besides PowerPoint presentations and buzzwords. So I stayed home, worked on my business, coached Little League, and convinced myself that her embarrassment of me was somehow normal, even healthy. After all, opposites attract, right? Then, last Tuesday night, she walked into my workshop. I was finishing up a custom offset smoker for a guy in Atlanta. She said something that made my welding torch feel heavier than it should. "You have to come to my company's party this year." Not "I'd like you to come," or "I want you there." No. "You have to." Like I was a prop she needed to complete some picture she'd been painting. That was weird. Suspiciously weird. For 5 years, I'd been persona non grata. The husband who shall not be named. And when your wife suddenly needs you at a party she spent half a decade keeping you away from, that's not an invitation. That's a red flag the size of Texas, waving in the wind, maybe even on fire. I should have known right then that something was burning, and it wasn't just the brisket. The party was at the Belgrave Grand Hotel. The kind of place with a guy whose entire job is to open doors for you, like you've suddenly forgotten how handles work. This place dripped with the kind of wealth that makes you want to check your bank account just to make sure it hasn't committed suicide out of shame. Marble floors so shiny you could perform surgery on them. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than my first truck. The beat-up Ford F-150 that got me through my 20s and taught me duct tape is a valid mechanical solution. I wore my best suit, the charcoal gray one from my father's funeral. Miranda had insisted on a haircut, so I went to Tommy, my regular barber, who charges $15 and tells the same 3 jokes. Not the $70 salon she'd suggested. My shoes were polished. My cologne was the good stuff. I even trimmed my beard. I was presentable. Damn it. Even if I felt like a bear stuffed into a tuxedo for a circus act. Miranda, though. She wore a red dress that could cause a multi-vehicle pileup. The fabric hugged her in ways that reminded me why I'd married her in the first place. Back when I was 23 and thought pretty and ambitious meant good. Her heels were so high I worried about her ability to flee in an emergency. She spent 2 hours on her makeup and hair, which seemed excessive until we walked in and I realized everyone there looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine ad for things I couldn't afford and didn't want. The ballroom was packed. Open bar, top shelf liquor, that explained the enthusiasm. Waiters glided around with trays of tiny food that looked like art projects. Little towers of something, drizzled with a third something that was probably truffle oil. I grabbed a whiskey, tried not to break anything expensive, or make eye contact with anyone who wanted to discuss quarterly earnings. Miranda immediately transformed into her work persona. It was like watching Clark Kent become Superman, except instead of fighting crime, she was fighting for social status. Laughing louder, touching arms more, using phrases like "circle back" without irony. I stood next to her like a piece of furniture, smiling politely while she introduced me. "This is my husband, Darren," she'd say, with the same enthusiasm you'd use for your podiatrist. "He builds barbecue pits." Then she'd pivot the conversation away from me before anyone could ask follow-up questions, like I was an embarrassing fact to be acknowledged, but not dwelled on. I was nursing my second drink, seriously contemplating how quickly I could fake a medical emergency, when he appeared. Gavin Cross. He materialized out of the crowd like a villain in a movie who knows the camera's on him. He was everything I wasn't. Polished, smooth, the kind of handsome that comes from good genetics and better skincare. His hair was perfect, like he just walked off a shampoo commercial set. Not a single strand out of place. He had a smile that was probably described as winning on his dating app profile. The kind of grin that made you want to punch him even before he opened his mouth. He had that particular brand of confidence that only comes from never having to assemble IKEA furniture at 2 a.m. Miranda's entire face changed when she spotted him. A complete transformation. Like someone had plugged her into an electrical socket and turned her up to 11. She lit up brighter than our Christmas tree. Her eyes sparkled in a way they definitely hadn't sparkled when looking at me in recent memory. They had that instant connection, that comfortable familiarity that made my stomach drop, like I'd just driven over a hill too fast. They laughed at inside jokes, whispered comments not meant for anyone else, acted like they were the only 2 people in the room. I might as well have been a decorative plant. Something green and boring that nobody notices until it dies and starts smelling funny. Gavin barely acknowledged my existence for the first 10 minutes. Shook my hand with a grip that was trying too hard to prove something and said, "Oh, you're the husband." Like I was a minor character he'd heard about but never expected to meet. Then he turned back to Miranda, complimenting her dress, her hair, her recent presentation that killed it in ways I didn't understand and didn't care to. They talked work. Late nights at the office. My internal alarm system was blaring louder than a smoke detector with dying batteries. But I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure, jealous for no good reason. Then it happened. The moment that would change everything. The moment I'd replay 1,000 times. Gavin turned to me, that smug smile on his face, reached into his wallet with a kind of casual confidence that made me want to set something on fire, and flicked a single dollar bill across the table. It landed right in front of my drink. George Washington stared up at me like he was disappointed in both of us. Gavin leaned back, draped his arm casually near Miranda's shoulders without quite touching her, which somehow made it worse, and said, "Don't worry, champ. I'll take good care of her tonight." The table erupted. Miranda's colleagues, people I'd never met and would never see again, laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Miranda herself had the decency to look embarrassed for about half a second before she joined in. Her laugh mixed with everyone else's, a chorus of mockery that made my ears ring. Someone said, "Oh my God, Gavin," in that tone people use when something is inappropriate but hilarious. Another guy, in a suit that probably cost what I make in a month, slapped the table and wheezed like he was dying. I sat there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 3 seconds. Watching my wife laugh at a joke about another man taking care of her. Watching her co-workers treat me like I was the punchline to a story they'd all been in on, except me. The dollar bill sat there, crumpled and insulting, a physical representation of what these people thought I was worth. The rational part of my brain screamed to stay calm, not to make a scene, to remember assault charges are expensive. But there's a limit. A limit to what a man can take before something inside him just snaps, like a tension wire pulled too tight. I picked up that dollar bill. Folded it neatly into quarters with hands that were surprisingly steady, considering the rage currently remodeling my internal organs. I looked Gavin directly in his smug, punchable face. "Thanks," I said. My voice was calm, clear enough that nearby tables went quiet. "That's the down payment for your upcoming hospital bills." The laughter died faster than my respect for my wife. Gavin's smile faltered for just a second before he tried to play it off. Miranda's face cycled through pale, then red, like a traffic light having an identity crisis. I could feel every eye locked on me. I could practically hear the gossip engines revving up for Monday morning water cooler talk. I stood up, buttoned my suit jacket with a deliberate calm that probably looked more threatening than any outburst. And I walked out of that ballroom before I started a second career in aggravated assault. Behind me, I heard Miranda calling my name, but her voice sounded distant, unimportant. Like a radio station fading out as you drive away from the city. I tipped the valet $20, sat in my truck for 5 minutes before I trusted myself to drive. That dollar bill was still in my pocket. It felt like it was burning a hole right through my suit. Miranda didn't come home that night. I know because I stayed awake, watching the driveway like a psychopath in a stalker movie. Except instead of being creepy, I was just a guy slowly realizing his marriage was circling the drain like hair in a shower nobody bothered to clean. I sat in my workshop at 3 a.m., still in my suit pants but with an old Metallica t-shirt, welding steel with the kind of focused aggression that should have concerned me. There's something therapeutic about welding when you're pissed off. The shower of sparks, the smell of hot metal, the fact that you're creating something instead of destroying something. Which is what every fiber of my being wanted to do to Gavin Cross's face. My phone sat on the workbench, stubbornly silent. No calls. No texts. Not even a "don't wait up" message. I tried calling her twice. Straight to voicemail. I left one message. Simple. "Where are you?" No yelling, no accusations. Just 3 calm, reasonable words. The kind of question a husband should be able to ask his wife at midnight without it being a federal offense. The workshop was freezing, but I kept working, finishing a custom smoker for a client in Memphis. My hands knew what to do, even when my brain was spinning like a hamster wheel powered by rage and disbelief. I kept replaying the party. The way she laughed at Gavin's joke. The way she'd looked at him with something in her eyes she used to reserve for me. The casual cruelty of that dollar bill, and the fact that she hadn't said a single word to shut down that disrespect. I thought about calling a buddy, but there's something deeply humiliating about admitting your wife might be cheating. It feels like a failure. Pride's a funny thing. It'll keep you silent even when you're drowning, Make you smile and wave from underwater while your lungs are screaming for air. Around 4:30 a.m., I finally stopped welding. Made coffee in the workshop's ancient pot. Watched the sky turn from black to that weird purple-gray. My phone buzzed. A bank app notification. Out of habit, I checked it. My blood pressure spiked into the stratosphere. Miranda had used our joint credit card at the Belgrave Grand Hotel for a room. The charge was $387. A fancy suite, of course. Apparently, if you're going to cheat, you might as well do it in luxury. I took a screenshot. Saved it to 3 different folders. Emailed it to myself. Because I'm not an idiot, and divorce court loves documentation. I sat there, staring at my phone, wondering what percentage of marriages end because of a hotel charge and a dollar bill. At dawn, just as the sun was painting the sky, I heard her car. That distinctive purr of her white BMW. The one I'd helped her pick out. I stayed in the workshop, forcing myself to organize tools, because I didn't trust what I might say or do if I met her at the door like some anxious puppy. She crept into the house like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. I watched through the window. I waited 5 minutes. Then 10. Let her think I was still asleep. Then, I walked across the yard in the cold morning air, still wearing my welding gloves like armor, and went inside through the back door. She was standing by the coffee maker. Yesterday's makeup. And Gavin's suit jacket. His monogrammed suit jacket. Because, of course. GC, right there on the left breast pocket, in fancy script that probably required a second mortgage to afford. "Oh," she said, her voice doing this weird squeaky thing that might have been cute 20 years ago, but now just sounded guilty as hell. "You're up early." "Never went to sleep," I said, my voice flat dead. "Where were you?" She laughed. Actually laughed. A nervous twitter that made me want to put my fist through the drywall I'd installed 5 summers ago. "I told you I'd be late." The party went long, and then a bunch of us went to another colleague's suite to keep celebrating. I crashed on their couch. She gestured to the jacket like it was evidence of innocence. "Oh, Gavin lent me this. It got cold." "Right. Because 3 a.m. is prime time for PowerPoint presentations. Because you need a man's suit jacket in a climate-controlled hotel. Because your husband is stupid enough to believe you spent 7 hours in someone's suite doing anything besides what we both know you were doing." Then I saw it. Just above the collar. On her neck, where it met her shoulder. A mark. Not just any mark. The kind of purple-red bruise that has exactly one cause and 0 innocent explanations. Someone had stamped "property of morons" right on her skin. A hickey. A goddamn hickey. At 44 years old, my wife came home with a hickey like she was 16. "You've got something on your neck," I said, pointing with one grease-stained finger. Her hand flew up. Her face cycled through surprise, panic, then defiance. "It's just... I must have burned myself with a curling iron yesterday. You know how clumsy I am." The curling iron. That was her excuse. I'd been married to this woman for 23 years. Watched her get ready 8,000 times. Never once had she burned herself with a curling iron. But sure, today of all days, she suddenly developed a coordination problem resulting in a perfectly mouth-shaped burn mark. "Right," I said. "The curling iron." She turned away, busied herself with the coffee maker, started humming some pop song. Making small talk about the weather. About needing to pick up dry cleaning. About turkey or ham for Christmas. Acting like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just walked in wearing another man's clothes with his mouth print on her neck. Like our marriage wasn't actively bleeding out on the kitchen floor. I watched her pour coffee into her boss lady mug. Add the exact amount of cream and 2 sugars. Stir precisely 7 times clockwise because of some weird superstition about counterclockwise stirring bringing bad luck. She was playing normal, committed to the bit. And something inside me just broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But quietly. Like a rope that's been fraying for years, finally giving up its last thread. That's when I decided. The locks were changing. Today. This morning. Before she could walk back through that door with another man's jacket and another weak excuse. I was done being the decorative plant. Done being worth $1. Done pretending any of this was salvageable. She kept humming. And I started planning. By the way, if you're still with me and wondering how this whole mess plays out, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss the rest of this story, and believe me, I've got more unbelievable tales coming your way. Sunday morning hit me like a hangover, except I was completely sober, which somehow made it worse. I'd spent Saturday avoiding Miranda. She'd gone to bed in the guest room without me asking her to, which told me everything I needed to know about her guilty conscience. Cheaters always tell on themselves eventually. They just can't help it. I was up at 6 a.m., made coffee strong enough to strip paint, and headed straight to Home Depot before the DIY weekend warriors could clog up the aisles. There's something deeply American about solving your problems at a hardware store. Marriage falling apart? There's a product for that. Wife cheating? Aisle 7, next to the deadbolts and your dignity. I walked through those automatic doors with a mission. Buy locks so strong they could keep out the apocalypse, zombies, and cheating spouses in that order. I went old school. Schlage deadbolts. Grade 1 security. The kind locksmiths respect and burglars cry about. I bought 4. 1 for every exterior door. Plus new handles that matched. If I was doing this, I was doing it right. The cashier, a kid named Brandon, scanned my locks without comment until I added a drill bit set and a new screwdriver. His eyes got a little knowing. Home improvement project? He asked. Something like that, I said. More like home security. Keeping the wrong people out. I feel that, Brandon said, nodding. My ex kept showing up after we broke up. Had to change my locks 3 times. I wanted to tell him that at least his ex was just showing up, not showing up in another dude's clothes, but that felt like oversharing. Women, right? I said instead. He laughed, gave me a bro-code nod. The total was just under $300. It felt like the cheapest investment in my sanity I'd ever made. Miranda's car was still in the driveway. I grabbed my purchases and headed straight to the front door. The one she'd walk through tonight after whatever activity she'd planned to avoid actually dealing with our marriage. Installing new locks? Oddly satisfying when you're angry. There's something cathartic about unscrewing the old hardware, removing the mechanisms that used to let someone in, and replacing them with shiny new barriers that require different keys. Keys she didn't have. Keys she wouldn't get. I worked methodically. Front door. Back door. Side door. Garage. Each took about 20 minutes. I did them with the precision of a surgeon and the motivation of a man who'd finally hit his limit. Noah wandered out around 9 a.m., still in his pajama pants. He watched me for a minute. Dad, why are you changing all the locks? Home security upgrade, I said. Making sure only the people who live here can get in. He was quiet for a second. Does Mom know about this home security upgrade? She's about to find out. That's cold, Dad, he said, but it sounded more impressed than concerned. Want some help? We worked together on the last 2 doors. It was nice. When we finished, I handed him the old locks. So what happens when she tries to get in? Noah asked, anticipation in his voice. We find out if she remembers how to knock, I said. By noon, I'd tested all the locks, distributed the new keys. 1 for me, 1 for Noah with strict instructions, and a spare hidden in my workshop. The twins and Hazel were out. They'd missed the fireworks, but I'd fill them in later. Miranda had left around 10 a.m. for hot yoga. Whatever you want, I'd said about dinner plans, knowing dinner plans were about to become the least of her concerns. At 6:30, I heard her BMW pull into the driveway. I was sitting in the living room with a beer and a book I wasn't reading, just using as a prop. Noah was upstairs, door cracked, definitely listening. I heard her footsteps on the porch. Her keys jingle. That familiar sound of her trying to insert her key into a lock that no longer recognized her authority. Silence. Another attempt, harder. More silence. Then the frantic cycling through her entire keyring. Darren! She yelled. I let her yell my name 3 more times before I casually walked over and opened the door. She stood there in her yoga pants, holding her keys like they'd personally betrayed her. Her face was somewhere between confusion and fury. The key isn't working, she said, stating the obvious. Yeah, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Neither is our marriage. Her jaw dropped. Literally. What, Darren? That's not. We need to talk about this. Let me in so we can have an adult conversation. Adult conversation? I repeated, tasting the words. That's rich, coming from someone who spent Friday night in a hotel room and came home wearing another man's jacket. That's real mature, Miranda. Very adult. That's not what happened. You're twisting everything. Her voice was climbing, getting that shrieky quality that meant she was losing control of the narrative. I told you we would. Just go talk to Gavin, I interrupted, feeling calmer than I had in days. The guy who thinks I'm worth $1. The guy whose initials were on the jacket you wore home. The guy who left his signature on your neck. I'm sure he'd love to have an adult conversation with you. She tried the door handle, tried to push past me. Like this was still her house. I didn't move. Didn't budge an inch. Just stood there, an immovable object to her unstoppable audacity. Darren, this is my house too. You can't just lock me out. Actually, I said, I can and I did. Maybe crash on Gavin's couch tonight. I hear you're familiar with his furniture. That's when the neighbors started appearing. Old Mrs. Henderson suddenly needed to water her dead December plants. The Johnsons discovered an urgent need to check their mailbox. Even Mr. Park, who usually minded his own business, was very interested in his gutters. They weren't even subtle about it. Just standing in their yards, pretending to do tasks, while obviously listening to my wife have a meltdown on our porch. Miranda noticed the audience, lowered her voice, trying to salvage dignity. You're being unreasonable. We need to talk about communication. About communication? I said loud enough for them all to hear. Because at this point, I didn't give a single damn about privacy. Communication ended when you turned our marriage into a group project, Miranda. When you added a third person without my consent. That's not a marriage. That's a committee. And I'm resigning. Her face went red, then white, then some color I didn't have a name for. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish out of water. Finally, she grabbed her phone from her yoga bag, stormed back to her car, peeling out of the driveway. I waved to the neighbors, who quickly went back to their fake tasks, and went inside to finish my beer. It tasted like victory. The house felt different after Miranda left. Like someone had finally opened a window in a room that had been suffocating for months. I sat on the couch with my beer getting warm, listening to the silence, and realizing I didn't miss her voice filling it. That's probably the saddest realization a married man can have. That peace sounds better than his wife's presence. The beer tasted like freedom, with a slight aftertaste of impending legal bills. But I'd take it. Noah came downstairs an hour later. He had that look kids get when they're trying to decide if they should say something or just let sleeping dogs lie. He grabbed a Coke, sat in his grandfather's old recliner, and just stared at me for 30 seconds, scanning me for damage. So, he finally said, popping the can, Mom called me. I bet she did. I grimaced. Let me guess. I'm being unreasonable, dramatic, refusing to communicate like an adult. She said you're overreacting, Noah reported flatly. That you changed the locks without warning and embarrassed her in front of the neighbors. That you're making a big deal out of nothing. Nothing. I repeated, blood pressure rising. Did she mention the nothing she was doing in a hotel room at 2 a.m.? The nothing that left a mark on her neck? The nothing that involved wearing another man's jacket home? Noah held up a hand. Dad, I'm just telling you what she said. I'm not saying I believe her. He took a long drink of Coke. She wants me to talk to you. Convince you to let her back in so you guys can work through this like mature adults. And what did you tell her? I told her I'd talk to you, Noah grinned. I didn't say I'd try very hard. I laughed. Couldn't help it. You're a good kid, Noah. Too good for this mess. Dad, I'm 18. I'm not a kid anymore, and I'm definitely old enough to know when someone's bullshitting me. He leaned forward. I've seen how she's been treating you. Like you're an accessory she's embarrassed to wear. Like building smokers. Isn't a real job. It's been gross to watch. That hit me harder than I expected. I thought I'd been hiding it better. Apparently, I was wrong. You noticed that, huh? Dad, we all noticed. Even Hazel asked me last year why Mom never wants to talk about what you do when her friends are around. Noah crushed his can. Marcus and Maya have a whole theory she's been having an affair for 6 months. I told them they watched too many reality shows, but... He gestured vaguely at the locked door. Guess they were on to something. 6 months. My own kids knew. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Whitmore and Associates. A law firm. Miranda had already lawyered up, and it hadn't even been 24 hours. That was fast, I muttered. Lawyer. Noah raised his eyebrows. Probably. Well, at least you hit him. Noah started, then corrected himself. Wait, no, you didn't hit Gavin. You just threatened him verbally. That's personal growth, Dad. I'm proud of you. We both laughed. The slightly unhinged laughter that happens when your life is imploding, but you've still got enough sense of humor to see the absurdity. I didn't hit him. Gold star for emotional maturity, Darren. But inside I was boiling. Like a smoker on overheat. I wanted to break things, scream. Instead, I sat on my couch drinking warm beer with my son, pretending I had any idea what I was doing. The next morning came too early, bringing gifts I didn't want. The mail arrived, and mixed in with credit card offers was a thick manila envelope. My hands shook slightly as I opened it. Miranda's lawyer. 3 pages of legal jargon that boiled down to, Miranda wanted money, wanted it now, and wanted a lot of it. Spousal support. Equitable asset division. Half of everything I'd worked for. But the part that made my blood boil, the part that had me gripping the letter so hard I nearly tore it? She wanted half of my business. Half of Hold Custom Smokers. The company I'd built from nothing, in a garage, with borrowed tools and a dream everyone said was stupid. The business she'd spent years calling, too blue-collar for her image. That business. She wanted half of it. I read the letter 3 times, getting angrier with each pass. Then I called Jack Freeman. My attorney for years. He'd handled business contracts, gotten me out of a zoning dispute that nearly shut down my workshop. He was expensive but good. And he enjoyed a good fight. Darren. Jack answered on the second ring. How's business? Business is fine. Marriage is dead. Need your help killing it officially, and making sure I don't get murdered in the process. There was a pause. Then Jack's chair creaked. Finally, huh? I was wondering when you'd call. Melody saw Miranda at a restaurant 2 weeks ago with some guy who definitely wasn't you. We figured it was only a matter of time. Everyone knew but me, apparently. I felt stupid and angry. I just got a letter from her lawyer. She wants spousal support and half my business. The business she always said was beneath her. Jack laughed. Not a nice laugh. The laugh of a lawyer who'd just been handed ammunition. Oh, Darren, my friend. You're about to have fun. Legally sanctioned fun. I don't want fun. I want to not lose everything I've built. Same thing in this case, Jack said. Come by my office tomorrow. 9 sharp. Bring any financial documents you've got. Bank statements, business records, that letter. And Darren? Stop talking to her. Don't answer her calls. Everything goes through me now. Understand? Understood. Good. And Darren, we're going to destroy her. Legally and ethically, of course. But thoroughly. I hung up, feeling something close to hope for the first time in days. Maybe I was screwed, but at least I had Jack Freeman in my corner. And that man loved winning almost as much as he loved billing hours. Good news or bad news? Noah stuck his head into the kitchen. Potentially good news disguised as expensive news. That's the lawyer spirit, Noah said. Want me to make pancakes? Spite pancakes taste better than sad pancakes. Make a lot, I said. We're going to need the energy. We ate pancakes and planned for war. Jack Freeman's office was in one of those downtown buildings that tried really hard to look important. All glass and steel, with modern art nobody understood. His suite was decorated in that expensive minimalist style. Leather chairs, a massive desk made of some endangered tree, framed diplomas. I showed up at 9 with a cardboard box full of my entire financial life. Jack was already there with coffee, and next to him, a woman I'd never met. Darren Holt, meet Clara Wu, Jack said. Clara was in her 30s, sharp gray suit, rectangular glasses, the kind of expression that suggested she'd seen every financial crime humanity could dream up and wasn't impressed. Clara is a forensic accountant. Best in the business. She's going to dig through your finances. Clara stood up, shook my hand with a surprisingly strong grip. Mr. Holt, I'm sorry you're going through this, but I'm very good at finding where money goes when people think nobody's looking. Call me Darren. And I appreciate that, because I have a feeling my wife's been creative with our finances lately. We sat around Jack's conference table. I started unpacking my box of financial shame. Clara's eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. She immediately started organizing everything into piles. Okay, Jack said. Community property state, married 23 years, 4 kids. She's claiming spousal support and half the business. What assets are we looking at? I ran through the numbers. The house, my business, $300K profit a year, retirement, savings. Clara typed notes on her laptop. And she's claiming what grounds for divorce? Clara asked, not looking up. Irreconcilable differences, according to her lawyer. Which is code for, I got caught cheating and need to make it sound mutual. Jack leaned back, steepling his fingers. Here's what we're going to do. Clara is going to audit your joint accounts, credit cards, any financial activity over the last year. We need to know if she's been hiding money, spending inappropriately, anything we can use to counter her narrative. How long does that take? For someone good, a week, Clara said, finally looking up. For me, 3 days. I'm very motivated by spite, and cheating spouses offend my sense of order. She smiled. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed ruining people's days. Jack mentioned you think she's been staying in hotels? I know she has. I've got the credit card charge from last Friday. $387 at the Belgrave Grand. Clara's fingers flew across her keyboard. What card? Our joint Amex. The one linked to the business account for legitimate expenses. Her eyes narrowed. Your business account? She's been using business funds for personal expenses. She's got authorization for client entertainment, business dinners. I added her as an authorized user years ago. Seemed logical at the time. Oh, this is going to be good, Clara said, genuinely excited. I love it when spouses forget business accounts have different rules than personal accounts. Misuse of business funds. Potential tax implications. Possible fraud if she's claiming personal expenses as business deductions. Mr. Holt. Darren, I'm going to need access to all your business accounts, credit card statements, expense reports. Everything. I gave her the login credentials. Watched her eyes light up even brighter as she started pulling up statements. Jack poured us more coffee while Clara worked her magic, muttering about expense categories and merchant codes. After about 20 minutes of clicking and typing, Clara looked up with the expression of someone who just found buried treasure. Darren, when was the last time you actually reviewed your business credit card statements? I mean, I look at the totals every month. Make sure nothing's wildly off. Why? Because your wife has been very busy with your money. Clara turned her laptop to show me a spreadsheet that made my head hurt. In the last 6 months alone, she's charged over $40,000 to your business account. Hotels, restaurants, spa days, shopping. There's a charge here for Victoria's Secret for $600. ISTHATALEGITIMATEBUSINESSEXPENSFORBUILDINGSMOKERS? MYSTOMACHDROPPED. 600. Is the legitimate expense for building smokers? Mr. dropped. 40,000? Are you serious? Dead serious. Look at this. The Belgrave Grand Hotel appears 11 times in the last 4 months. Always on Friday or Saturday nights. Charges ranging from $300 to $600 PERSTAY. THATSNOTBUSINESSTRAVEL. DARREN. THATSANAFFAIRHOTEL. CLARASCROLLEDTHROUGHMORECHARGES. EACHONEFELTLIKEAPUNCHTOTHEGUT. 600 per stay. That, snot business travel. Darren, that sanaferital. Clara scrolled through Murakarges. Ichoni felt like Iapunctothegut. 1,000 at Fleming Steakhouse. $2,000 at a spa resort in Gatlinburg. Multiple charges at liquor stores. She's been living very well on your dime. Can we use this? I asked Jack, rage and vindication fighting for dominance in my chest. Oh, we're going to use the hell out of this. Jack grinned like a shark smelling blood. Misuse of business funds, affecting your tax liability, demonstrating a pattern of deception. This destroys her claim for spousal support. You can't claim you need money while you're out here spending 40 grand on hotels and steak dinners. Clara kept typing, digging, getting more excited. She's been transferring money too. Look at this. Regular transfers from your joint account to another account. $2,000 here. $1,500 there. $3,000 last month. Always going to the same place. She pulled up the transfer details. Account holder, GC Enterprises LLC. GC. I repeated, something clicking. Gavin Cross. Allegedly, Jack said. But yes, probably. Clara, can you trace that LLC? Already on it. GC Enterprises. Registered in Tennessee 6 months ago. Principal owner. Gavin Cross. Business purpose. Listed as consulting services. What a joke. This is clearly a pass-through for personal income. We sat there for a minute, letting it sink in. Miranda hadn't just cheated. She'd been systematically looting our finances to fund her affair, using my business accounts like her personal piggy bank, transferring money to her boyfriend's shell company. The audacity was almost impressive. Then Jack looked at me. Darren, I need to ask you something. This Gavin Cross guy, where does he work? Some tech company. Miranda mentioned it a few times. Something with outdoor products or innovations. Jack's grin got even wider. What's the full name of your business? The legal entity name, not just Hold Custom Smokers. Hold Custom Smokers and Outdoor Innovations LLC. I bought out a smaller competitor 5 years ago. Kept them running as a subsidiary. They make fire pits, outdoor grills. Different market than my custom smokers. Why? I stopped mid-sentence. No. No way. Yes way, Jack said, still laughing. Clara, pull up the corporate registration for Crossfire Outdoor Innovations. She typed, clicked, and her jaw dropped. Parent company. Hold Custom Smokers and Outdoor Innovations LLC. Owner. Darren Holt. Holy. I need to see the employee roster, I said, my voice strangled. Pull up Crossfire's payroll. Clara navigated to my business accounting software. And there it was, in black and white. Gavin Cross, Senior Marketing Director, Crossfire Outdoor Innovations. Salary $95,000 a year. Reporting structure. Ultimately reports to me. The guy who threw a dollar bill at his boss. The guy who'd been sleeping with my wife, using my money to fund his lifestyle, smirking at me like I was beneath him. That guy cashed a paycheck with my signature on it every 2 weeks. My laughter could have registered on the Richter scale. It started as a chuckle, built into a roar, and ended with me wiping tears from my eyes. This is going to be beautiful, I finally managed to say. This is going to be so goddamn beautiful. Jack was already making notes. Darren, my friend, we're not just winning this divorce. We're going to make legal history. Tuesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp winter sunshine that makes everything look clean and hopeful. Wildly inappropriate, given I was about to professionally destroy a man's life. I got to my office at Crossfire Outdoor Innovations at 7 a.m. Early enough to beat the crowd, but late enough that my assistant, Kelly, would be there with coffee and the ability to schedule meetings without asking too many questions. Kelly had been with me for 12 years. She'd survived 3 economic recessions and my terrible dad jokes. She had a sixth sense for when I needed something done quietly. Morning, boss, she said, holding out a cup of coffee. You've got that look. What look? The look that says someone's about to have a very bad day, and you're going to enjoy watching it happen. She sipped her coffee, eyeing me over the rim. What do you need? I need you to schedule a mandatory meeting for all division heads. Today, 10 a.m. sharp. Conference room A. I took a long drink of coffee that tasted like liquid vengeance. Make it sound important but vague. Strategic planning session, or organizational restructuring discussion. Whatever corporate nonsense makes people nervous. Kelly's eyes narrowed. All division heads means Gavin Cross for marketing. Especially Gavin Cross for marketing. She didn't ask questions. Just nodded and started typing. Consider it done. Anything else? Yeah. Can you pull Gavin's personnel file? I want it on my desk in 20 minutes. Complete file. Hire date, performance reviews, salary history. Everything. Getting messy, are we? Kelly smiled. Kelly, we passed messy 3 days ago. Now we're in scorched earth territory. About damn time, she muttered, and went back to her computer. By 9:30, Gavin's complete employment history was spread across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. Hired 3 years ago. Decent reviews. Nothing spectacular. Salary bumped twice because of market adjustments I'd apparently approved without paying much attention. A few notes in his file about boundary issues with female coworkers. Nothing actionable, just HR observations. About him being overly friendly. Reading between the lines, a creep who'd learned to operate just inside the acceptable zone. I also had the dollar bill. Folded and creased, I smoothed it out on my desk like a valuable artifact. Physical evidence of disrespect. A paper trail of arrogance. George Washington as my witness. At 9:45, I walked into conference room A and set up camp at the head of the table. The room was one of those modern spaces with uncomfortable chairs and a whiteboard nobody used. I positioned myself where I could see everyone's faces. Put the dollar bill in my jacket pocket. And waited. The division heads filtered in. Susan from operations, Michael from finance, Patricia from HR, and a couple of others. They all looked vaguely concerned. Nobody looked happy to be here. Good. I wasn't aiming for happy. Gavin walked in at exactly 10 a.m., probably thinking that being precisely on time showed professionalism. He was wearing another expensive suit, hair styled within an inch of its life, carrying a leather portfolio. He looked confident. Comfortable. Like a man who thought he belonged here. Like a man who thought he was untouchable. Then he saw me sitting at the head of the table. His tan face drained faster than cheap coffee on a hot plate. All that artificial color just vanished, leaving him the color of old newspaper. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened slightly. I watched in real time as his brain tried to calculate what the hell was happening. Morning, everyone, I said, keeping my voice casual, friendly. Thanks for making time on short notice. Please sit down. Everyone sat. Gavin remained standing for a beat too long before finally lowering himself into a chair 3 seats down from me. He tried to maintain eye contact, project confidence, but his hands shook slightly as he opened his portfolio. Morning, Gavin, I said, looking directly at him with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Heard you had an interesting night last Friday. How's Miranda doing? The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Susan from operations physically recoiled. Patricia from HR got very interested in her notepad. Michael from finance looked like he was trying to calculate the legal liability of this conversation. Gavin opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Mr. Holt, I'm not sure what you're... Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm referring to, I said, tone light, conversational. The company party at the Belgrave Grand Hotel. The one where you were very generous with your financial offerings. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the dollar bill, unfolded it slowly, deliberately, and slid it across the conference table toward him. It spun slightly on the polished wood before coming to rest directly in front of his portfolio. I think this belongs to you. Gavin stared at that dollar bill like it was a live grenade. The silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I watched confusion, recognition, horror, panic, flash across his face. Like a slot machine landing on the worst possible combination. I don't. He started, his voice cracking. Let me help you out, I said, leaning back. That's the dollar bill you threw at me. Your boss, owner of this company, while making a joke about taking care of my wife. Remember now. Patricia from HR made a noise that might have been a gasp or her soul leaving her body. Susan covered her mouth. Michael just stared at Gavin like he'd never seen him before. Mr. Holt, I can explain. Gavin tried again, desperate. Please don't, I interrupted. I've heard enough explanations to last a lifetime. What I'm interested in now is professional conduct. Patricia, Can you grab Gavin's personnel file? I think we need to review this section about employee behavior and corporate values. Patricia practically ran out of the room, grateful for an escape. The rest of us sat in uncomfortable silence while Gavin sweated through his expensive suit. I watched the stains form under his arms, his collar getting damp. The complete collapse of his confident facade. You know what the funny thing is, Gavin? I said conversationally. I actually liked you when we hired you. Thought you had potential. Good credentials, decent ideas. I had no idea you were the kind of guy who'd disrespect his boss and sleep with his wife. That's poor judgment, Gavin. Really poor judgment. I didn't know, he stammered. She never said. I thought you were just some what? I asked, genuinely curious. Some nobody? Some guy who didn't matter? Some blue-collar loser you could throw $1 at and laugh about? He didn't answer. Which was answer enough. Patricia came back with the file, handed it to me like it was radioactive, and sat down quickly. I opened it, flipped through a few pages for dramatic effect, then looked up at Gavin. It says here that employees are expected to maintain professional conduct both during and outside work hours, especially when representing the company at official functions. Would you say throwing money at your boss and propositioning his wife falls under professional conduct? I wasn't. It was just a joke. I didn't mean, here's what's going to happen, I said, closing the file with a satisfying thump. You're fired. Effective immediately. Conduct unbecoming of an executive. You can clean out your desk within the hour. Escorted by security. Your final paycheck will be mailed to your address on file. Your benefits end today. And if you try to file wrongful termination, my lawyers will be very happy to discuss your relationship with my wife and your misuse of company time and resources in court. Gavin's face went from pale to red to pale again. You can't. This isn't. I absolutely can, and it absolutely is, I said. Patricia, can you call security to escort Mr. Cross to his office and then off the premises? Already texted them, Patricia said, not looking up. They'll be here in 2 minutes. We sat in silence. Gavin looked like he wanted to crawl inside a vent and die. Or dissolve into the floor. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The kind of calm that comes from finally taking action after days of impotent rage. Security arrived. 2 guys named Marcus and Jeff. They escorted Gavin out without incident. Though I'm pretty sure Marcus accidentally bumped him into a doorframe. The meeting ended shortly after. Everyone looked shell-shocked. I didn't care. I went back to my office, had another coffee, and waited for the fallout. It came 3 hours later. A voicemail on Miranda's phone, which got forwarded to mine. Gavin's voice, high-pitched and panicked. You didn't tell me your husband is the owner of my company. You said he was just some. You said he built grills. You didn't mention he owned the whole goddamn business. I just got fired, Miranda. Fired because of you. Because you couldn't be bothered to mention that your husband signs my paychecks. There was more, but I stopped listening. I was too busy laughing. Music to my ears. The week between Gavin's firing and our first court date was a masterclass in watching someone's carefully constructed life fall apart in real time. Miranda tried calling me 67 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. Jack had been very clear. No contact. Everything through lawyers. Protect yourself from doing something stupid. She left messages that ranged from apologetic to angry to desperate. We need to talk. You're being unreasonable. Think about the kids. How could you do this to me? That last one was particularly rich, coming from a woman who'd been spending my money on hotel rooms with her boyfriend. She also tried using the kids as messengers. Noah shut her down immediately. Marcus told her she made her bed, and now she could sleep in it, preferably in a hotel. Maya just hung up on her after a 30-second lecture about personal responsibility. Hazel cried, which broke my heart, but even she understood on some level that Mommy had done something really wrong, and Daddy wasn't the bad guy here. Miranda moved in with her sister, Denise, who lived in a condo in Green Hills and had always thought I wasn't good enough. I imagined them sitting around, bitching about men and drinking Chardonnay, while pretending Miranda was the victim. That image sustained me through several difficult moments. Jack kept me updated on the legal maneuvering. Miranda's lawyer, Robert Petton, who specialized in high-conflict divorces, lawyer code for "I represent terrible people," was trying to paint me as controlling, financially abusive, and emotionally distant. They were building a narrative where Miranda was the neglected wife who'd made one mistake, and I was the tyrannical husband who'd overreacted. Creative fiction, I'll give them that. They're going to try to make you look like the bad guy, Jack warned me. They'll say you humiliated her, abused your power, that you're trying to punish her instead of working on the marriage. Standard playbook. Let them try, I said, feeling calm in a way that probably should have worried me. We've got 40,000 INRECEIPTSTHATSAYOTHERWISE. WEVEGOTMORETHANTHANOW JACKGRINNED CLARAFOUNDTHREEMOREACCOUNTSMIRANDEOPENDIANEGMEONLY SHESBENSIPHONINGMONEYFOROVERAYEAR TOTALDAMAGESARECLOSETO70GRAND MYBLOODPRESSURESPIKED 40,000 in receipts tatsayotherwise. Oh, we've got morathanthat no, Jack grinned. Clara found 3 Marie counts Miranda opened in her namianly, she's been siphoning money for over a year. Total damagesaclosito 70 grand. My blood pressure spiked. 70,000? $70,000 of your money used to fund an extramarital affair. Hidden in account she thought you'd never find. Jack slid a folder across the table. Bank statements, transfer records. She's cooked. Darren. Absolutely cooked. The day of the hearing arrived with all the joy of a root canal. I wore my court suit, different from my funeral suit. Jack met me at the courthouse steps. Stay calm, he said. Answer questions directly. Don't volunteer information. And for the love of God, don't let them bait you into losing your temper. I'm calm, I said. And I was. I'd moved past anger into something colder, more focused. I wanted justice, documentation, and my life back. In that order. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Catherine Morrison presided. Early 60s, steel gray hair, and in an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie humanity could produce. She looked at both parties with equal skepticism, which I took as a good sign. Miranda sat on the other side, with Peton, wearing a conservative navy dress that screamed, responsible wife who was wronged. Her makeup made her look tired but brave. She wouldn't look at me. Kept her eyes on her lawyer or the judge, playing the victim to the hilt. Peton started strong. He painted Miranda as the devoted wife who'd sacrificed her career to support my business, endured years of emotional neglect. He claimed I was vindictive, controlling, that I'd publicly humiliated her. Mr. Holt refuses to communicate, Peton declared, gesturing dramatically. He shut my client out of her own home, denied her access to marital funds, and used his position of power to destroy the career of a colleague simply out of spite. This is a man who values revenge over reconciliation. Judge Morrison looked at me. Mr. Holt, would you like to respond? Your Honor, I said, voice level. I'd like to address the public humiliation claims. My wife humiliated herself when she spent the night in a hotel with another man, and came home wearing his jacket with a hickey on her neck. I didn't humiliate her publicly. She did that herself. I just provided better lighting by refusing to pretend everything was fine. I heard a snort from the gallery. Noah. Judge Morrison's lips twitched slightly. As for the locks, I continued, I changed them after discovering my wife had spent our money on hotel rooms and was having an affair. That's not vindictive. That's self-preservation. And regarding Mr. Cross's termination, he was fired for conduct unbecoming of an executive, specifically for sexually harassing the wife of his employer at a company function. That's a fireable offense in any organization, Your Honor. That's a gross mischaracterization, Peton started, but Jack stood up with a folder of doom. If it pleased the court, Jack said, smooth as butter, we have documentation that directly contradicts Mr. Peton's narrative. May I approach? Judge Morrison nodded. Jack walked forward, laid out printed bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel invoices, transfer records. Each page, another nail in Miranda's coffin. The judge started reading. Her expression went from neutral to skeptical to actively annoyed. "Mrs. Holt," Judge Morrison said, looking up, "can you explain why you charged $43,000 to your husband's business account over a 6-month period, including multiple hotel stays, expensive dinners, and transfers to an LLC owned by Mr. Gavin Cross?" Miranda opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her lawyer in panic. Peton shuffled his papers. "Your Honor, those were legitimate business expenses related to my client's work in corporate marketing. At the Belgrave Grand Hotel, 11 times in 4 months, on Friday and Saturday nights?" The judge's eyebrow climbed. "That's an interesting business model, Counselor." The courtroom got very quiet. I watched Miranda's carefully constructed victim narrative crumble like a sandcastle at high tide. She tried to speak, but nothing came out except a small squeaking sound. Then Judge Morrison asked the question that made everything worth it. "Mrs. Holt, were you aware that Mr. Gavin Cross was employed by a company owned by your husband?" Silence. Dead. Absolute silence. Miranda stared at her hands, at the table. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to be on fire. The seconds ticked by. Her silence said everything words couldn't. "I'll take that as a yes," Judge Morrison said dryly. "Or at least you should have known, given that you were having an affair with him and using marital funds to support said affair." Peton tried to salvage something. "Your Honor, my client made mistakes, but she still deserves equitable division of assets and spousal support." "Counselor," Judge Morrison interrupted. "Your client stole $70,000 from the marital estate to fund an extramarital affair. She's not getting rewarded for that behavior. Here's my ruling." What followed was the most beautiful 15 minutes of my life. Judge Morrison awarded me the house. Full ownership, no buyout. She awarded me the business, both the custom smoker division and the subsidiary, free and clear. Full legal custody of the kids, with Miranda getting supervised visitation. She ordered Miranda to repay the $70,000 she'd stolen, plus legal fees, plus court costs. "And as for assets Mrs. Holt will retain," the judge said, squinting at the paper. "She'll keep her personal belongings, her yoga equipment, and a 2008 Toyota Corolla that Mr. Holt indicates he was planning to donate to Goodwill." Noah's laughter echoed through the courtroom. I didn't even try to hide my smile. Miranda looked like she'd been slapped with a legal textbook. Her face pale, shocked, tears ruining her makeup. We walked out of that courthouse into crisp December sunshine. Jack clapped me on the back. Noah gave me a high five. "Dad, that was better than any movie I've ever seen." "Justice usually is," I said, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Mom's crying to Aunt Denise about having to drive the Corolla. This is the best day ever." Yeah, it really was. News travels fast in a small business community. But news about a guy getting paid $1 for his wife, and then legally destroying both her and her boyfriend? That spread through Nashville like wildfire in a fireworks factory. I first realized I'd become a local legend when I stopped at my usual gas station. The cashier, a kid named Tyler, looked up and said, "Yo, you're that smoker guy. The one who fired his wife's boyfriend. Dude, that's epic." I didn't know whether to be flattered or concerned that my marital implosion had become entertainment for 19-year-old gas station employees. Yeah, that's me, bro. Everyone's talking about it. My manager saw the court documents online. Someone posted them on Facebook. That part where the judge gave your ex the Corolla you were going to donate to Goodwill? Comedy gold. Man. Absolute legend status. He handed me my change with reverence. "My mom wants to know if you're single, by the way. She's divorced too. Loves barbecue. Tell your mom I appreciate the interest, but I'm not emotionally ready to date someone who could have given birth to me," I said, escaping. But Tyler wasn't wrong. My phone blew up. High school buddies I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins. Even my Uncle Ray, who lived off-grid in Montana, sent an actual telegram. "Well done. Stop. That dollar bill move was poetry. Stop." The story had achieved meme status. Someone created a fake motivational poster with my face and the caption, "Respect the man with grease on his hands. He probably signs your paycheck." I was simultaneously mortified and deeply amused. But the real surprise? My business phone started ringing off the hook. Kelly had to start screening calls. Restaurants, backyard barbecue enthusiasts, competition pitmasters, even celebrity assistants. Everyone wanted a hold custom smoker. Not just because they were quality products, but because they wanted to support the guy who'd become the folk hero of wronged husbands everywhere. Darren, you've got another one, Kelly said, poking her head into my workshop. Gentleman from Memphis wants a premium smoker. Said he read about you in some business blog and respects a man who handles his problems with class and fire. His words. Not mine. She showed me an article. Tennessee entrepreneur turns personal betrayal into business boom. A masterclass in professional revenge. It had gone viral. The irony wasn't lost on me. Miranda had always been embarrassed that I built barbecue pits. Now that blue-collar business was making more money than ever, and I was getting featured in business publications while she drove a 2008 Corolla with a bumper sticker that probably said, "My other car is also disappointing." That's when inspiration hit. I was in my workshop at 2 a.m., my traditional emotional processing time. I realized I could turn this disaster into something productive. Something that honored men and women everywhere who'd been betrayed but kept their dignity. Something with a little sass and a lot of marketing potential. The next morning, I called Noah into my office. He'd taken a gap year, working for me part-time, learning the business. He had a talent for social media. He could make a 30-second video of me welding steel look like an action movie. "I've got an idea," I said, pulling out sketches. "New product line. Premium smokers. Top-of-the-line materials. We're calling it the Loyalty Series." Noah looked at the designs, then at me, and grinned. "Dad, that's brilliant. What makes it different?" "Each one comes with a custom engraving," I said, showing him the mock-up. "Right here on the front panel. Tasteful but visible. Don't get burned." He burst out laughing. "That's savage. I love it. We could market it as premium smokers for people who value loyalty and quality. Play up the whole relationships might fail, but good craftsmanship lasts forever angle." "Exactly," I said. "And we price them higher. These are statement pieces for people who want their smoker to have a personality." Within a week, Noah had created an entire marketing campaign. Videos of me building, talking about craftsmanship and integrity. Never directly mentioning my divorce, but letting the subtext do the heavy lifting. The Loyalty Series sold out before we even finished the first batch. Pre-orders for 30 units at $5,000 each, with people specifically requesting the "Don't Get Burned" engraving. My kids processed it in their own ways. Marcus started boxing. Hitting things was therapeutic, he said. Maya threw herself into environmental activism. "At least the planet's problems have solutions," she told me, unlike Mom's personality disorder. And Hazel. My baby at 12. She was the hardest. Sensitive kid. Cried during commercials about abandoned puppies. The divorce hit her hard, so I got her into therapy. Last week, she came into my workshop, climbed onto my workbench. "Dr. Chun says I should tell you how I feel," she said. I put down my tools. "Okay, how do you feel?" "Sad that Mom did what she did. Angry that she broke our family. But also..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Proud of you." "Proud of me?" "Yeah. Dr. Chun says you handled everything really well. That you stayed calm and didn't say bad things about Mom even though you could have. That you protected us and didn't make us choose sides. She says not all dads do that. She says some dads make it worse. But you didn't." I felt something in my chest crack open. Some pressure I didn't know I'd been holding. "I tried. Sweetheart. I'm sorry you had to go through any of this." "It's not your fault," Hazel said firmly. "It's Mom's fault for making bad choices. Dr. Chun says we can't control other people's choices, but we can control how we respond. And you responded really good." "Really well," I corrected automatically, then hugged her. "Thanks, kiddo. That means a lot." Later that night, I told Noah about it. He smiled. "You know what? Dr. Chun's right about the calm thing. You could have lost it. Done something stupid. Made it all worse. But you didn't." "Calm," I said, stealing Hazel's phrase, "is the secret ingredient of revenge. Anyone can blow up. It takes real control to stay cool and let idiots destroy themselves. Noah raised his Coke can in a toast. To calm revenge and the loyalty series. To quality craftsmanship and knowing your worth, I countered. We clinked cans. Somewhere in Nashville, Miranda was probably crying to her sister about the unfairness of life while driving a Corolla with 180,000 miles on it. The smoke was clearing. The fire was steady. Life was finally starting to look like something I could build on. 6 months later, life had settled into something that actually felt like living, instead of just surviving. Spring had arrived in Tennessee with all its obnoxious beauty. Miranda was working at a smaller marketing agency. Finding herself, Noah said, which is what middle-aged people say when they've screwed up their lives and are trying to rebrand the consequences as personal growth. She'd moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a complex that advertised luxury but really just meant a green pool. The Corolla was still running, somehow. Gavin had reportedly fled to Florida, selling boats. His new boss? My second cousin Frank Morrison, who knew the whole story. Karma, I guess. My business was thriving. The loyalty series had a waiting list that stretched into next year. I'd hired 3 new welders, expanded the workshop. Being known as the guy who handled his divorce with dignity and fire was excellent for business. Who knew? One evening in late April, I was sitting on my porch with a cold beer, watching smoke curl up from my personal smoker where a beautiful brisket was reaching perfection. Noah joined me, bringing his own beer. Dad, Noah said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. You really handled all that like a pro. I grinned, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Son, sometimes you don't have to fight fire with fire. You just have to let idiots light the match themselves and stand back far enough to enjoy the show without getting burned. That's going on a t-shirt, Noah said, laughing. The stars started appearing. The smoker was running steady. Inside the house, I could hear the twins arguing about something meaningless while Hazel practiced piano. My home was filled with the sounds of actual life again. Messy, loud, imperfect, but real. And honest. As for that dollar bill? It's framed in my office now, hanging right above my desk where I can see it every morning. Right below it, on a custom metal plaque I made myself, is my company motto. Respect the man with grease on his hands. So what do you think? If you were in my shoes, how would you have handled that dollar bill? Would you have walked away, or confronted him right then and there? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.